Now we should have the second speaker online. Thank you for being with us. So Dr. Duan is from the National Institute of Metrology in Beijing. He received his PhD in thermal energy from Tsinghua University in Beijing, China, and he was deputy director of NIM, Beijing, where he is also the secretary of the party committee of the NIM. He has a deep experience in metrology studies and strategic research, published dozens of academic papers, was awarded many prizes, and was main contributor of many scientific projects at international level. He has served as IPM member until 2023, and he also served as CCT, Consultative Committee for Thermometry, as president from 2012 to 2024. Dr. Duan is going to tell us a story not of 150 years, but a much longer one. So, Dr. Duan, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, distinguished guests and colleagues. Thank you for the invitation of BIPM, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to make a presentation on the historic contribution of China to measurement science on this Metrology Day for the 150th anniversary of the Meter Convention. The development of measurement in China from ancient time to the present has gone through the stages of emerging of the measurement concepts and tools, unification of measurement standards, systemization of measurement, and engagement in the global measurement community. The most important historical event in ancient Chinese measurement was the unification of weights and measures by Qin Shi Huang, the very first emperor in ancient China, which took place in 221 BC. Since then, the official weights and measures have remained unified regardless of the changes in China's ruling dynasties. We observe two trends in the measurement development in ancient China. One is the constant pursuit of more uniform and accurate measurements. Take the lens measurement as an example. In the earliest time, people used body parts as measuring tools. For example, they used to measure a ch by handspan, in which ch is a Chinese measurement unit similar to food. After that, people used natural objects as measuring instruments. For example, they aligned and counted a specific number of grains of millet to define one ch. These measure the modern metrological approach. Later, people made artifacts as measurement standards. The picture here shows the ancient Chinese Huangzhong pitch pipe, which served not only as lens standards, but also as acoustic standards. This embodies the intrinsic link between length and the frequency, which is what we know well in the modern metrology. Measurement vessels for capacity and weights also underwent evolution from everyday household items to the measurement standards. The second trend in ancient Chinese measurement was the constant pursuit of more authoritative, convenient, and precision measurement. First, take the ruler as an example. The material was constantly upgraded from bone to jet to ivory, and it has a wide range of uses. The second, there emerged the multifunctional measuring instruments. The very representative of this kind was the Xinmang bronze caliper of 9 AD, which share a similar shape with the modern vernier calipers, and also has a fixed ruler and a movable ruler, which can easily measure the depth, diameter, and the thickness of an object. The third there emerged all-in-one measurement standards, a prime example being the 新莽加量 of 9 AD, which integrated 5 distinct volumetric standards into a single artifact. Another famous example is the compass, which we know is one of the 4 great inventions of the ancient China. It's used for indicating the direction of the Earth's magnetic field. The compass played a great role in the development of the maritime navigation. In 1977, China officially signed the Milton Convention, and the NIM joined the global metrology community. So I would like to talk about a few of the outstanding contributions of China and NIM in particular to modern metrology, as well as our efforts to address global challenges. The first is time and frequency. In 2014, NIM started to submit data of NIM5 primary frequency standard to the BIPM and participated in the calibration of TAI. Since 1980, NIM and the NTIC has been participating in the International Atomic Time Cooperation. By February 2025, the total weight of the atomic clock operated by NIM and NTIC in TAI calculations was 24.2%. There are several other Chinese institutes make contribution for TAI. By close collaboration with NIST of the US, NIM measured the Boltzmann constants by 2 independent methods, the Johnson noise thermometry and the acoustic gas thermometry. Both of the results were adopted in the final adjustment of code data, contributing to the redefinition of the Kelvin. In 1980 and the 90s, NIM made contribution to the determination of electrical constant Rk and Rj. Since 1990s, NIM has finished the atomic weight measurement of 10 elements, which were all accepted by the IUPAC as the new standard values and evaluated to be the best measurement. Next, I will briefly talk about our efforts to address major global challenges. The first is climate change and environment. NIM has close collaboration with NIST and NPL in this area. Established China's first urban-scale carbon emission monitoring and inversion system in Zhengzhou, a megacity in central China, which can obtain an accurate and responsive high spatial temporal CO2 inventory. The second is health and life science. During the COVID-19 pandemic, under the CCQM framework, NIM jointly coordinated 2 international comparisons on nucleic acid measurement of the SARS-CoV-2 with LGC and NIBSC of UK and the NIST of the United States. Concurrently, in collaboration with BIPM and the NRC of Canada, NIM led international comparison on monoclonal antibodies of SARS-CoV-2. So NIM has developed the reference material supplied to more than 1,000 institutions in China and 20 countries worldwide. In conducting basic research and addressing major challenges, we have come to recognize that metrology work operates in 3 dimensions. Beyond basic metrology and legal metrology, it must also serve the need of various industries such as energy measurement, marine measurement, communication measurement, environmental measurement, etc. I believe these industrial applications represent the potential areas for metrologists to invest in their expertise. This is where the applied value of metrology truly manifests. Finally, I'd like to conclude with 3 points. Since ancient times, China has been fully aware of the need of need to unify weights and measures, and has continuously pursued the improvement of measuring instrument and means. Engagement in the global metrology community fosters the advancement of Chinese national measurement capabilities and contributes to the progress of measurement science. The last point, metrology drives advancements in science and industry, economy, and trade. So we need to work hard. Thank you for your attention. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Duan, for this very comprehensive talk. I hope you will be able to stay with us.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. For the questions. I now call Dr. Martin Milton, if you wish to join us. Dr. Milton, I think, is the director of BIPM. I think that everybody now knows what is BIPM. He has been a director since 2013, after working at a national physics laboratory from 1981 to 2012. He's chairman of the Joint Committee of the Regional Metrology Organization and the BIPM, and the Joint Committee for Guides on Metrology. Honorary professor in the Department of Chemistry at the University of York, fellows of several institutions. And, we are very glad that you can present us 150 years of BIPM in 15 pictures.
Thank you, Professor Casserly. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. I gave myself this title, celebrating 150 years in 15 pictures. It's actually in 15 minutes, and you'll quickly work out that that's a compression ratio of well over 1,000,000 to 1. So you'll understand that not everything is included. But I'd like to even make life more difficult for myself by stepping back again to the time before the BIPM was established, because I want to talk a little bit about the origin of this phrase we keep hearing, pour tous les temps, pour tous les peuples. Where did it come from? Well, I think we've seen earlier that it appeared on this medal dated 1837. But what is this medal of 1837? I step back quickly. So in 1791, the National Assembly here in France agreed on the definitions of the meter and the kilogram, and they launched those expeditions to carry out the work. Delambre and Méchant, and Lavoisier was commissioned to create the first standard of the kilogram. But in that first regulation of the National Assembly, they stated that the preferred artifacts would be presented back to the National Assembly, and when they were recognized, a medal would be printed, and that medal would be printed bearing the words "à tous les temps, à tous les peuples." Well, the artifacts were presented in 1799. We heard a little about the story. But you know, the medal never got printed. But things got worse in France, because in 1812, France abandoned the exclusive use of the metric system. Napoleon, the emperor, of course, seeking greater support, very concerned about his military plans at the time, agreed a number of compromises with the countries of the whole, and one of them is that they would allow non-decimal usages within the measurement system. They would allow 1/3 of a meter to be a foot, for example. Now, Laplace, the great mathematician, had written the year before that the principal advantage of the metric system is in its decimal division. So there, in 1812, the decimal division advantage of the metric system was diluted. But in 1837, France again agreed to the exclusive use of the metric system. This medal was printed thanks to a benefactor in Lyon who funded its production, and there it has the great phrase, "for all times, for all people." The text at the bottom, I expand there, to mark the exclusive usage of the decimal measures in France on the 4th of July, 1837. And of course, on the back was the picture of this celestial description of the quadrant of the Earth. But much more was to happen in the 19th century, of course, to the metric system. The first thing I would identify is that confusion developed as to which were the true standards of the meter. Were they truly the artifacts deposited in the archives in 1799? Or was it truly 1/10,000,000th of the quadrant of the Earth going through the Paris Observatory? Or was it actually traceable to the tous? This is the surveying unit, about this much, about 2 meters, that was used in the big surveying work. Or was it one of the other intermediate meter standards held in many other institutes in France who were working with the system? So there was that confusion, but there was also more demands for accurate measurements. This is the period where European nations were very concerned with the importance of mapping, in part because one wants to know how much land one owns, in part because one wants to know how far the artillery will fire, but then discovering that the maps of one nation don't agree with the maps of another nation at the border. Part of this was possibly allocated to a discrepancy in the meter. This period is the period of the coming together of the industrializing nations in the great exhibitions. Firstly in 1851 in London and then subsequently in Paris. I have a picture here of the Great Exhibition in 1867 in Paris. That's not the Eiffel Tower, by the way, but the exhibition centre you see is this concentric building in the distance there. And right in the middle is a pavilion, almost like a temple. And this thing right in the middle of the exhibition, this is the Pavillon des Poids et Mesures et Monnaie. These are the most important things when the industrial nations come together. It's weights and measures, well, and money. So they had a commission that was going to award prizes to the best performing equipment in different categories. That commission did its work, and at the end it wrote a report that was submitted to the French government in which they stated it was difficult to do this kind of work because the measurement standards in different countries were such that they couldn't compare equipment to the standards that would have been necessary. So the report was given to the French government, and on the 16th of November, 1869, Emperor Napoleon III invited states to send representatives to Paris to form the International Meter Commission, the international gathering that would work towards what we now know as the Meter Convention. At that time, 25 states participated in that work. Now, the work of the Meter Commission was of enormous interest in France. I can justify that statement by saying that the president of France himself was personally concerned. Here's a cartoon from the press in 1872. We see President Adolphe Thiers here. He was not a tall man, but we see him standing next to something. Perhaps that's a toise of 2 meters, but I think what the cartoon really shows is that these people here are really over 3 meters tall. Anyway, that was a cartoon. But we also know from other pictures of the work to form the metals, to form the alloys, to create the first prototypes, that Thiers himself was present at those events. He's shown in a number of pictures that were published at the time. We also know that the work of the Meter Commission was considered to be of enormous importance by the French government because they chose to mark the event by commissioning the production of 55 vases from the Manufacture Nationale in Sèvres. 55 vases with 55 names on of the participants in that commission. We are very fortunate at the BIPM that we have one, the 𝐬𝐲𝐬𝐭 vase, which was given to us. Of course, BIPM didn't exist when the vases were produced. And those vases are spread around the world, a very few in measurement institutes, a large number in museums and in private holdings. Well, this is another special year for the BIPM and for the metric system, the SI. So we've had a project this year, also with the Manufacture Nationale in Sèvres, who are, of course, our neighbour, to produce a new edition of vases, a new edition of 17 vases that we're making available to NMIs who wish to buy them. Here's a picture of them. I say 10 have been answered for already, but there's still an opportunity for 7 NMIs to be the owner of a 150th anniversary vase of the Meter Convention. There they are, and they're very beautiful. Anyway, the Meter Commission proposed the signing of a Meter Convention, which took place on the 20th of May, 1875. By the way, we know from the records of the signing of the diplomatic papers that the signing took place in the afternoon. We know it took place in the session after lunch. So I'm going to claim that the signing of the Meter Convention took place 150 years ago during the time of this talk. There were 17 nations, each signing 17 pieces of paper, so perhaps it took a long time. Anyway, when we had the 100th anniversary in 1975, we had an event in the Salle d'Horloge, and I show this picture here. I think it's a rather nice picture, taken on that event, on that occasion. It might look like a picture of a rather large display of flowers, but if you look below the flowers, just here, you can just see there is the Meter Convention in a big frame, but it was available for everybody to see at that event. So 17 states signed the Meter Convention, and they signed a document that started with the words, "The high contracting parties desiring the international unification and perfection of the metric system." That is the true and formal name of the Meter Convention. The term Meter Convention doesn't appear anywhere in the text, and most nations use this wording in their formal acts to adopt the Meter Convention. But we'll carry on calling it the Meter Convention. So the French government committed to give to the BIPM, the organization founded by the signature of the Meter Convention, a site, and that site, of course, is the Pavillon de Breteuil, which itself has a history going back well before we took it over in 1875. I want to talk now about the most eminent of the 12 directors of the BIPM, which is Charles-Edward Guillaume. Charles-Edward Guillaume was Swiss, born in Fleurier in 1861. He worked at the BIPM for 53 years. They didn't have retirement like we think about it now. And in that time, he was director for 21 years, including much of the First War. He wrote in 1902 a statement which I think captures the scope of much of his work. Often in the last centuries, geodesy has preceded metrology proper, or at least dictated its progress. He knew that the top priority for the new organization, the BIPM, was the meter. It was the meter that was needed by geodesy. It was geodesists who, in most part, had come together in that Meter Commission to form the BIPM. And his work was concerned very largely with the meter. You see a photograph of him, You see a photograph of him here in the courtyard, working with 2 assistants, and on the reels he has big surveying wires. Now, he became famous and won a Nobel Prize in 1920 for the discovery of INVAR, because the expansion of these surveying wires used for the set surveying bases was a critical source of uncertainty. He discovered that the alloy of 64% iron and 36% nickel had greatly reduced thermal expansion. He received a Nobel Prize in 1920, and there's the citation, in recognition of the service he has rendered to precision measurements in physics by his discovery of anomalies in nickel-steel alloys. I love this picture we found in the archives of an object that seems to have been created by cutting pieces of cardboard to show the phase diagram of iron nickel with manganese in the other direction. This apparently was prepared for his Nobel Prize discourse in Stockholm. I guess he took photographs of it rather than taking that itself to Stockholm. Anyway, his certificate has on it, of course, the Pavillon de Breteuil, the only Nobel Prize certificate with that on it. So Charles Edward Guillaume was extremely well connected in scientific circles in Paris. He was a long-standing and close friend of Pierre Curie, and through his links with Pierre Curie, of course, became very friendly with Marie Curie. Marie Curie had a part-time job teaching. A teaching job brought her to Sèvres. So we can see the linkage that brought the Curies often to the BIPM. For example, in this picture, we have Guillaume on the left and the Curies on the right. Marie Curie would eventually leave her standard of radium with us at the BIPM, and we have logbooks with her signature and the signatures of other distinguished Nobel Prize winners at the time, registering that radium standard with us. Guillaume was also involved in the very difficult process of advocating for Marie Curie to become a member of the Académie des Sciences in Paris. He was one of the prime supporters of her candidacy to receive that position. Guillaume was also a friend of Gustave Eiffel, who of course built the Eiffel Tower in 1889. Here's another cartoon. This is Charles Edward Guillaume. I know it looks a bit like Einstein, but that's Charles Edward Guillaume. And he's holding here an INVAR wire because he was involved in a public experiment, if you like, to celebrate the power of the sun in 1912, where he laid out 116 meters of his INVAR wire down from the top of the Eiffel Tower, down from the second stage of the Eiffel Tower. And as the sun moved from behind, or as the clouds moved across the sun and exposed the sun, we read the Eiffel Tower expanded, and this apparatus that he placed 2/3 of the way up the Eiffel Tower, that the needle started to move, showing the expansion of the Eiffel Tower in response to the sun. I have to say that if one calculates very quickly, the expansion of the Eiffel Tower with respect to a degree of temperature change isn't very much. It's around 1 millimeter. So this actually was a very difficult experiment. But let's say he made the point for the wider community about the power of the sun. Now, in order to celebrate our 150th, one of my colleagues, Céline Fellag, has done an enormous amount of work with the BIPM archives. In the BIPM archives, she's found some photographs that we'd never seen before. Many of these are assembled in her book, which we're going to launch tomorrow down in Versailles. But let me show you a couple of highlights from the archives. Perhaps the biggest highlight, Céline found some small photographs, black and white photographs, and on the back written the name Robert Doisneau. Robert Doisneau, of course, a very famous French photographer. We had no idea he had been to the BIPM. Celine contacted the Duan archive, which of course is meticulously maintained, and they identified around 14 photographs that we could say were of the BIPM. Here's one of those contact sheets. You can see scientists in the labs all observing something, see the common theme here. And then top right, we have what is a classic picture of the prototype kilogram, very beautifully taken one there with the slight shadow effect that he's chosen to use. So in order to celebrate our 150th, we wanted to update that legacy by commissioning a current photographer to take photographs of the BIPM today to mirror the photographs by Duan. I show you just 3 here that illustrate the new work of the BIPM. So we have a photograph here from the ionizing radiation department, which we started in 1964, who do the work that provide the standards for national measurement institutes to underpin radiation therapies, X-ray doses, and standards for radioactivity. In the time department, activity that we started in 1984, where we now maintain the UTC, the Universal Time Scale, in collaboration with 85 laboratories submitting data each month. And in the chemistry department, work that we established in 2003 to provide standards for pure substances used by metrology institutes around the world for measurements of food and pharmaceuticals and to support laboratory medicine. I'll move on quickly from the meter because we've had some good discussion about the meter already, but say 1960, a huge change in the presentation of the work of the BIPM with the decision to use the name International System, SI, Système International, for the system of units that they had at that time. In 1960, it was only a 6-unit system, but shortly after, in 1971, it was agreed that the system would encompass a 7th unit from the chemistry community, the mole, to allow the application of the SI to measurements in chemistry. Now we have a 7-unit system linked to 7 fundamental constants. Our new system since 2018, a system that allows for the use of quantum mechanisms to realize accurate standards. And right at the center of those measurements is the Kibble balance we heard a little bit about earlier. We have a Kibble balance at the BIPM, and here's a picture of that enormously difficult and enormously important experiment that goes on at BIPM and in a number of other NMIs around the world. The agreement of the adoption of the SI based on fundamental constants was taken at a meeting of the General Conference of 2018. I have to say, if I have to pick 15 pictures about the BIPM, this has to be one. Because this is that moment that those who were there will remember of that spontaneous joy and excitement and satisfaction that the work of decades had been achieved, and it had been achieved by unanimity despite real technical difficulties that we'd worked through together. So that's a very happy picture of the community. So as I finish, where next? Where next for the CIPM? Where next for the BIPM? Well, the vision for the metric system was ambitious. Pour tous les temps, pour tous les peuples. For all times, for all people. We should certainly have the same ambition for the SI. I'm sure we do with our new fundamental constant-based SI. And we should have the ambition that it's continued to be underpinned by the latest science and support the latest needs. But I'd add to that that the vision for the meter convention is also ambitious. I go back to that opening phrase of the text of the convention, desiring the international unification and perfection of the metric system. Currently, we're an organization of 64 member states and 37 associates. We've had discussion this morning, but I believe that the future should be that we recapture that ambition, that the work of the metric system, of the SI, of the BIPM, of the metrology community should be universal and should visibly involve all states in the world. So there is a huge challenge for us all, one that I believe is worthwhile and one that I believe we have a lot of support for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Milton, for a very inspiring talk. I'm afraid that we are running a little bit late. I don't know if we have time for a few questions. Okay, since there is no, I will take maybe 2 questions. I would like to ask first a question to Dr. Duan, because I realize that an aspect that is often forgotten of the metric system is decimal division. I wondered when this decimal division of the system was adopted in China. If you can tell us that in a few words.
I'm not sure, but from my knowledge, in the ancient time, we use how to say a double, not double. It's a dozen, a 12 system, and 10. How to say that? It's a decision. 时间是怎么说 ？Decimal. Okay. So I think many is confused. Some in the ancient Chinese system, we have the decimal system. We have the 12 system. So I think I need to check. One is the first time the decimal come to our society. I cannot give you exactly the date about this now.
Thank you. I think, Ken, you have something to add to this?
Yeah, is that on? Yeah. Actually, the commission that created the metric system considered going with non-decimal systems initially. Each of the components that we think of the metric system was debated and argued about, and there was a very serious consideration of going with base 12. At one point, the very eminent mathematician Lagrangians, you've heard of Lagrangians, proposed in true mathematician style that it should be base 11 because it was a prime number. I could never figure out if he was joking or not, but it was a serious, he put it out there, but yeah, the idea was ease of calculation, but each of these was added, each element was considered separately. The thing we're looking at is a piece of work. It's not a natural thing. It requires work and constant maintenance.
Okay, I see that the timer is flashing red. If there is one question from the audience, I don't know, yes.
Bill always has a question.
I think that
Question for Mark. 25 countries were members of the Meter Commission. 17 signed the Symposium de Metre. What happened to the others?
Did everybody hear? It was about the 25.
It's about the 25 and the 17.
Yeah,
Well,
25 were in the commission. Only 17 signed. What happened to those other 8 people or 8 nations?
So there was some discussion in the Meter Commission, not only about units, but also about money, that other central thing in the exhibition. And the discussion broke down to a group of nations who were very committed that there should be a permanent repository and a permanent body looking after the standards. Those won the day. And a small group of nations who didn't want to sign up to ongoing costs. Now, I can say One of those was Great Britain. There were others I won't mention. So the thing became a little bit split over ongoing costs, but I have to say the fact that we're still here after 150 years, the majority who chose the model that subsisted got the answer right. However, very shortly after 1875, 3 of those who didn't sign came on board, particularly the Netherlands and Great Britain.
Thank you. I think we have to stop here. I would like to thank the 3 speakers of this session. Thank you very much for these talks and the questions and the answers.